Here we go. So what I want to explore today is something a bit complex, um, nuanced, but I think something that we all have to explore together. Otherwise, we fail to really understand ourselves. But the way I want to go there is from first exploring something else entirely. In other words, I want to go from a different direction. Let's explore the role of therapy, psychology, coaching, guides, rabbis, mentors, teachers, trainers, psychologists, psychiatrists. What do all these people have in common? Social workers, biokineticists. What do all these people have in common? Other than the fact that, they're all in the people business, there's another element to it. And that is that they help us against ourselves. What does that mean? It means that you take somebody else in your life and they help you fight against something within yourself to either make sense of it, to either learn how to deal with it better, to overcome it. So the trainer helps you overcome your natural tendency to want to be lazy. The psychologist helps you discover some stuff. The social worker gives you tips, and the coach gives you, their own method of how to push you. But ultimately, what they're all coming and saying fundamentally is that the war that you're fighting is within yourself. And we're going to help you fight the war within yourself. And that's a big challenge. It's a real big challenge to fight our own battles. And that's why of the so much of the economy is built on people helping us help ourselves. Now, there's a simple thing like the plumber who helps you fix your sink and the financial guy who helps you run your finances. Fine, maybe that's a skill some of us have, some of us don't, so we hire somebody to help us. But then there is the element that it's not just a skill, it's actually, I am at war with myself and I need you to help me fight my battles because I am at loss. And because I'm at loss, I'm asking you to please come help me because I'm not coping carrying my own battles. I'm not coping fighting this war. But that's a weird concept. In other words, what you're calling somebody and say, help me deal with me. Because I can't deal with me. Like maybe you, the outsider, can see something about me that I can't see. Maybe you, the trainer, could push me harder and I'll feel obligated to do it for you rather than for me. The pressure that's coming from the person, from the rabbi, you're going to push me further in Judaism than I'm going to push myself. In other words, somebody else is going to help me be a better version of me. Isn't that strange if you think about it? And the truth is, many people from the previous generation who never went to a psychologist, never went to a therapist, who see the whole thing as one big baloney, that's what they would say. What do you mean? Like, seriously, I'm going to sit there talking to you and you're going to help me be me? I mean, is that ridiculous? I mean, I live with myself. Who are you to even talk to me? But the fact is, and I believe that by the 21st century, there's very little discussion about it, that some form, each person their own form, but each one of us will need some person in our life, at least one, if not half a dozen, that will help us battle certain parts of ourselves. For one, it might be a coach. For the other person, it might be a psychologist. For the other person, it might be a mentor, a parent, a sibling, a spouse, but somebody that helps us navigate ourselves, which is such a It's a weird way Hashem created us. Like animals don't use each other to tame themselves. In other words, whatever, they use each other for pleasure, they use each other for company, but you don't see one lion doing psychology on another lion or coaching. Maybe when they're a little baby, the kid needs to be coached, but ultimately you go live your own life. This idea of each and every one of us till the last day we need will need to be dependent on somebody. You might see as weakness. You might see it as a condemnation of the human being, that the human being is so feeble, so weak, so unstable that they don't need somebody else. And the truth is that some people will argue that. Who needs marriage? I'll marry myself. I don't know if you've seen the fad, marry yourself. Good thing. Or who needs therapy? Or who needs to talk to somebody? I figured it all out. Or if I can't figure it out, nobody else can figure it out. That's the other argument. Argument one is I figured it out. Argument two is if I with myself can figure it out, really, you're going to come to me and you're going to help me figure it out? How? When? Why? How's that going to work? What are you going to do that I don't know? And we have to be honest with ourselves. We actually have to be honest and ask ourselves, what is it? What is it within us that makes us need other people to help us bring out our best self? And that's why, by the way, it's so important for us that our children have good friends. Why is it so important to us? Because if they don't have good friends, then someone's going to bring out the worst of them. In other words, someone's going to bring them out. And especially a child who's less independent than an adult, the bigger their negative influence, the bigger the chances that the influence is going to have an impact and they're going to follow suit. But even adults, if you live in a bad environment, if you live in a shallow environment, if you live in a angry environment, if you live in a imperfect environment, then you will be pulled into it because other people are constantly pulling something out of you. Either they're pulling out your good or your bad, but something about living around other people activates you. Maimonides uses the word ha'adam hu medini, that the human being is a social animal. And evolutionary psychologists will start telling you it's because we grew up with small groups, hunter groups. I don't know, I always find these philosophies. So it's a suggestion, could be. O sheken, o shalom. I don't know if that's why we were created. I think we were created that way by God. We were created that way that we are interdependent with each other. From the first moment, Adam turns to God and says, I need a partner. And God gives him Chava, gives him Eve. Why? Because a world needs interaction. And if I was able to live independently of you, then I would not need you in my life. I would not see that we are partners in the same endeavor of making this world a better place. The fact that we constantly need each other makes us constantly appreciate the role of relationships. And the fact that we need other people to bring out our best self shows us that you cannot live alone and be remotely a good version of yourself. It could be okay. But each person you bring into your life will make you a better version of yourself if you choose the right people. And sometimes you don't get to choose because it's your child, it's your sibling, you don't really get to choose that. But Hashem said it within the world that we are not alone. We cannot manage alone. Ein chavush matir atzma b'beis hasurim, somebody who's in jail, who's jailed, cannot release themselves out of jail. You need somebody else. And it's not There's nothing virtuous or prideful to say, you know what? I don't need anybody in my life. I'm good. You have nothing to tell me about me. There's nothing virtuous about that. It's impossible. It's impossible to know yourself without knowing how you're perceived in the eye of the other. The only way we really get to know things in this world is by contrast. In other words, what's the difference between this car and that car? You compare two cars. What's the difference between this phone and that phone? You compare. If there's only one phone in the world, you don't really appreciate the phone because there's no contrast. Even though it has unique things, it has X amount of memory and X amount of speed, you're not appreciating it. And that's why so much about shopping is contrast. And that's why so much, so many websites out there helping us do research to find the best version of what we are looking for. Because contrast gives us perspective. And the contrast is not only me seeing myself versus the other, it's the other giving the perspective of how they see me, how I'm experienced through them. So most of us, till we're married, we think we're very good people. I'm awesome. I have my life together. I'm sophisticated. I'm good. There's no problems. That's who we are. Most of us have no issue with ourselves, really, when we get married. We see ourselves as solid. That's why you see most, unless somebody's suffering from depression, a lot of young adults, spiffy and sophisticated and slick. Usually the most confident time in people's lives is while they're, late teens, early 20s, in the dating, selling the best version of themselves. They're so cool. They're getting their degree. They're advancing. They're building the career. You rarely see people 20 years later still walking around with that same, I got my life together. Why? Because life's humbled them, and because they have a spouse who reminds them that they're not the best thing since sliced bread. Obviously, the spouse also brings out the best, but what happens? You suddenly start contrasting yourself, and you start realizing marriage is a mirror, parenting is a mirror, and all the people around us not only give us an opportunity to do chesed, kindness with them, they make us ourselves. They help us be better versions of ourselves. And we spoke about this in the past, the necessity of being able to accept criticism, the necessity of having guidance, of having somebody who tells you the truth between your eyes the way it is. For me, the point I'm trying to bring across today is not only do you need somebody to tell you the truth, etc., but it's ingrained within your DNA that you cannot fight your battles by yourself. You cannot, not only the battles with others, you cannot fight your battle within yourself without others. The other person could give you tricks. The other person can give you help. One of the big accusations that Karl Marx had about religion, which he, is one of the things he's most known for, almost as known as famous as communism, is his argument that religion is opium of the masses. It's the idea that it becomes a crutch, and that if you don't have religion, then you don't have a crutch. You can't sit there saying it's God's fault, it's God, etc. So now you're left independent. But the truth is, he was right that religion is opium of the masses, in my opinion. What he was wrong is that if you take away religion, the people will not create the new opium. They'll literally take opium. Because the human being always needs something outside of themselves to worship, to give them clarity, to give them guidance, to help them bring out their best self. So if it's a God in heaven who's watching them, then there's a God in heaven who's watching them, and that's the one, and that's the being who I'm serving. If not, it's social status, it's a team, it's an image that I want people to have of me, but ultimately, I will always create something outside myself to help me be myself. Take a person and leave them on an island alone for a long time. There's a few movies about them. You're not exactly going to work out to be highly emotionally healthy, civilized, sane, put together. Like, there's a limit how many times you're going to get up and get dressed well, even if you have the world's biggest wardrobe on the island alone. Ultimately, we interact with others. And we all use something outside ourselves as our opium, as our crutch. And I would say, yeah, hell yeah, stay with religion as your crutch. Why not? At least it's an objective truth. It's God. It's not your friend that might be here today, gone tomorrow. It's not something shallow like social status or other things. As somebody wrote, I read it this week, worse comes to worse, I'll discover when I die that religion was false and it made me a better person in the process. Not a bad exchange. But Marx thinking that if he takes away religion and he calls its bluff and he says, listen, religion is just helping you battle yourself, your demons, by saying there's a God in the world, so let's take it away and make people stronger. He hasn't made people stronger. Taking away religion hasn't made people stronger. Taking away ritual has not made people stronger. We're the most obese, drugged up, stressed out, insecure generation in history. Because you cannot take away religion or take away, marriage. Like, so many of the things that built a person up have been torn down in the last few centuries. Whether it was faith, whether it was marriage, whether it was the loyalty to have children, being part of a community, all that helped us battle ourselves. But then you start, and this is something in different words, but I was just reading Rabbi Sacks's last book that he gave out before he passed away, Morality. His argument's a bit different, but it's like on similar grounds. And the point is, you take away so much of what the human being needs to bring out the best version of themselves, thinking that now all the stuff that were there, marriage and parenting and community and charity and religion and values and morality, take that all away. And now suddenly the person's going to be the best version of self. No, why do you think these things were there in the first place? Because they were opium of the masses, because that's the way the human being works. The human being needs something outside of themselves to worship, to do, to dedicate themselves. The more locked you are in your own head, you don't become a better person. The more you're interacting with others, the more relationships are building, the more cohesion you're building in your life, the more you have a God that you accept and you say, okay, do this, don't do that. The more you have that, the more you are becoming you, not you're becoming them. They are helping you be you. The outsider helps you be you. Religion does not take away your free choice. It gives you the ability to live free. Because, for example, religion will tell you the sanctity of marriage. So it'll tell you one man, one woman. So you might say, oh my gosh, that's so limiting. No, because any healthy person, any sane person realizes that that is the healthiest way to raise a family. That's the healthiest way for a relationship. Despite all the crazy modern philosophies that it isn't, it is. It's the sanest way to live. And religion just makes the battle easier, because now you're not only doing it because it makes sense, but because God said so. So even though you want to test the boundaries, he's saying, no, Hashem said. So yes, religion helps you because you need help. You and I need help to be the best version of ourselves. That's the only way we accomplish and succeed in this world. We need more opiums, but healthy opiums, not the opium, the opium addiction in America, and not drugs, and not alcohol, and not pornography or any other addiction that people are having. No, we need healthy crutches. But don't see them as crutch, because like when you say crutch, you're saying I'm weak. You're not weak. That's your superpower. Taking strength from religion, taking strength from your spouse, taking strength from your therapist, taking, forcing yourself to be strong for your children. All that is Hashem giving you various items to help you fight your own fight within yourself, to motivate you. Suddenly, when you have a child, you realize, okay, I have to be more motivated. I have to have more clarity. My religion has to take more of a serious space. I have to take care of my health. It's not low to say I'm doing it for my kids. No, it's realizing that it's almost impossible to fully self-motivate without any outside stimulus. There are some people who are naturally extremely self-disciplined, which is great, but also turns you into a robot. In other words, it's not necessarily the right way that each and every one of us has to become square. No, we battle within ourselves, and we struggle sometimes to self-regulate and to self-discipline. And then we bring certain areas in our life to help us bring out the best part of ourselves. So when religion comes and tells you do this, don't do that, it's not coming and limiting you. It's coming you and help you be you. Because if I'm just going to be myself without any religion, without any limitations, without any respect for boundaries, I'm going to be a shabby version of the person I want to be. So where do we come to? We come to this idea that not only do we need guides, not only do we need someone to tell us the truth, but fundamentally, in order for us to battle our battles, we need multiple people outside ourselves who give us the clarity, give us the purpose, give us the guidance to fight those battles. And they are not making you weak. A weak person is someone who thinks they have all the strength themselves. They're weak because they're hiding away the fact that if they were a little more vulnerable and they brought somebody in their life, some bodies, they would be better. It's actually strength to say, I cannot fight my own demons and battles alone. I need a higher purpose. I need relationships. I need something outside of myself that calls me. That's the thought for today.